Are you a humanitarian or development professional looking to take your skills to the next level? Then our self-paced online courses are perfect for you. We cover all the key areas you need to know, including monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, water, sanitation and hygiene, disaster risk reduction and management, food security and nutrition in emergencies, procurement and supply chain management, human nutrition and dietetics, maternal, infant and young child nutrition. Our courses are designed to help you advance your career, stay ahead of the competition, and make a real impact in your field. And the best part is that you can study at your own pace and on your own time. So don't wait. Enroll now and start advancing your skills today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. You are welcome to one of our very interesting webinars that we have in store for you. And we want to, first of all, thank you for just taking the time to join this session and getting to learn something up to in terms of what we have in store. For today, we will be looking at effective donor retention strategies. So I hope that your pen and paper are ready for you to be able to pick a few points that are going to help you even as you do your work. So with that, allow me to first start with introductions. My name is Sheilah. I will be the moderator for today. And I'm also joined with a few members from my team who have been able to make HG a success, even not HGS per se, but also the webinar a success. And we do hope that we'll be able to make ensure that your needs are met and you've been able to achieve all that you require for this out of this webinar. So with that, allow me to start with introductions, and let's start with Brian.
Hello everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Yes, as Sheila said, my name is Brian, part of the Humanitarian Global technical team. Just to ensure that this event is a success. So welcome. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Brian. Let's have Ian.
Thank you, Sheila. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session this morning. We do look forward to a resourceful session. In case of any queries, inquiries, please engage us and I will be available to assist. I represent the team as part of the business development team. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that. And I think I want to give a shout out to Alex, Sharif, Becky, Isaiah, good morning, Dahir, good morning. We also have Magaji from Garba, good morning. We have Emmanuel, good morning. Zakiruli, hi, how are you? We have Mohammed Ibrahim Ali, you're welcome. And then we also have Charles Opara. With that, I think I'll also bring on board Anthony to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Sheila. My name is Anthony Mukuhi from the academic support team. So happy to be part of this session today. And as part of the team, I work here. My role is to ensure that I can be there to respond to inquiries. In case you have any technical concerns, you can chat me, and I'll be there to assist you. So thank you so much, and looking forward to a great event. And feel free to tag along your friends, your colleagues, so that they can also be part of these events. So thank you so much, and back to you, Sheila.
Thank you, Anthony, for that. I think I'll also take this opportunity to invite our expert for the day to just say hi, and then we'll give him a chance later on to proceed. Kevin, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes.
My instructions are to say hi, and I will say more later. So hi.
Thank you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kadiri, for that. I think that's it. So thank you so much for the introduction. I'll also want to say hi to Nial, Magaji Andy, Tahir Ganazi, and also Adane Kasi. Thank you so much for joining, as well as Chaka from Ethiopia. So with that, I would want us to get right to it. First of all, I want to introduce back Ian to just give us what he has in store for us from HG, and then we will be able to proceed from there. Welcome, Ian. And as Ian prepares, I've just remembered, let's try and use the Q&A section and the chat feature to be able to put in our comments, our reactions, our questions. Please add them to the Q&A section so that we can be able to pick them as we continue, and also just any messages of saying hi and all that. from in our chat feature. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Sheilah. Once again, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon from wherever you're joining us from. I was just going through the chat section and I can see there's quite some, personalities here who will be really excited with the topic. I can see there's Alice Sefoy, who's the director of Caritas Sierra Leone. Thank you so much for joining us, Alice. There's also, I saw one from Somalia. Let me just look. Mohammed Ibrahim, who's the head of DIC Development Organization from Somalia. There's Charles, who's a monitoring and evaluation officer, Alliances for Africa. And I'm sure today's topic will be really exciting for such professionals and even the rest of us, because today we are talking about, effective donor strategies. And again, this is important and critical for the roles that we are playing in our different capacities in the various organizations that we are involved in. And here at Humanitarian Global, we are there to support you all the way through, capacity building, just helping you along the resource mobilization and management cycle, all the way from acquisition, retention, management, and that's what we are able to come in and assist from a training perspective. So just to give you a few thoughts, and probably I'll just request to be allowed to share my screen. We have some trainable areas through which we've been able to really put into effect and will be very beneficial for you as you look forward to join one of our training programs. I can just mention, even in the coming month of April, we have trainings in donor mapping and proposal writing. We have trainings in fundraising and resource mobilization. We also do have trainings in finance management for NGOs and donor-funded projects. So these are sessions that we've organized this coming month of April, and we do hope that you'll be able to join us in those sessions as well. Just to give you a sneak peek on what to expect from the same, remember, as I mentioned, as professionals involved in the resource mobilization and management cycle for various organizations, it is important to be equipped to understand, how to be able to, number one, access these donors. Where can we access the donors who are aligned with the objectives and missions that we are currently implementing as an organization? It's also important to understand what are the, what do they look at while they are assessing the different organizations to which they can get to work together with. And that's an area in which we're able to come in as well through our training workshops. So as I mentioned, the various areas through which we train professionals in, remember, you can be able to submit your interest for the same. You can also be able to let us know in the chat section. You can share your contact details, and one of our staff members will be able to reach out just to ensure that we are able to work with you and ensure we give you the necessary skills when it comes to accessing funds and fundraising, or just resources in the various organizations that we are involved in. And again, once you complete this training, there is a certification through which we are able to share with you. We are verified by NITA, by HPAS, as well as CPD UK, just to ensure that we do align with the global humanitarian standards when it comes to fundraising, resource mobilization, and basically everything donor related. And I will be able to share that with you. Our expert of the day, Kadiri, is really well versed with the topic, and I'm sure this will be an engaging session where we'll just be able to exchange ideas, bounce ideas off each other, just so that we're able to really learn more about the same. So we'll share the link on the chat section. Apologies, I've not been able to share my screen. We'll share the link on the chat section, and we will be able to reach out after the session is completed. So thank you so much, and I do look forward to learning more on the topic of the day. Back to you, Sheilah.
Great. Thank you so much, Ian. And I believe that you've taken up the notes, and we'll be able to reach out very soon for you to be able to attend our upcoming class. With that, I think I can also have a chance to say hi to Valerian. Hi, Valerian. Hi, Berkey, Director of Actors, DRC. Also, Yusuf from Lidosom. I think I had not mentioned Valeria is the manager, education and child protection manager, Ma Trust in Masai Mara. And Yusuf is also an operations manager at Lidosom NGO, and then hi to Abdikapi as well. So with that, I think I would want us to go straight to what we have in store for you today. And with that, I will bring on board Kadiri, give us his presentation on effective donor retention strategies. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheilah. and welcome everyone for this particular session. Glad to always have an opportunity to share the little experience we've gathered over the years, and to also be able to hear from the team and the expertise in the room. So just as we begin, as it has been said today, it's just a snippet of what you'll get if you join the course, that now we are able to go in depth into how do you acquire donors, how do you retain donors, how do you cultivate, donor relationships and so on. So today is just a small snippet on how do you retain that which you already have. And as we go through this session today, it is also not lost on me that we have different types of donors. And because we have different organizations represented here, I am well aware that there could be different types of donors that we target depending on what our target group is in our organization. So for example, I know that there are those maybe that a huge part of their funding comes from institutional donors, the likes of USAID, FCDO, the bilateral and multilateral donors. I'm also aware there could be people here who a big part of your funding for your work comes from foundations, private companies, and there could be also those who a big part of your funding comes from, corporate sponsorships and also individual giving, or what others would call face-to-face giving. And some of you also know in your websites, you also have those platforms where you invite people to give. So in the webinar today, I will not go specific into, for individual givers, how do we retain them? But because these are individuals who give to your organization. Or for institutional donors, how do you retain them? Or for corporate sponsors, how do you retain them? So I have collapsed all of this into one. And my hope and desire is that you'll be able to pick one or two or three things that would be relevant for you, and that you can be able to apply into the strategies that you currently have. So allow me to share my screen. All right, super. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so that is my name, Kadiri Kevin, and I am a fundraiser, so to speak. That's part of what I do. I'm also a meal professional, organizational development. So really, when you think about the entire project management cycle, that's my bread and butter. And again, we welcome you to take the courses that are on offer on HG. I can confirm that they are up to standard and they're relevant in the current environment that we are in. For those who might have attended one of the webinars we had on VUCA reality, you will understand when I talk about the current environment. So our discussion outline, which I already started, will do an introduction basically, then define very quickly what is donor retention, then talk about a few, not all, there are so many, but we'll mention just a few that in my view, I find quite important for us to consider. And then we'll have some time for question and answer. And I believe we'll be able to complete within the hour as we should. And therefore, just as we were saying or alluding to, this is data that I gathered from a fundraising effectiveness report. You can always, by the way, log on to that website, but I think you will be charged for them to send you their reports. They will charge you. So, but you can they have a lot of information on the current funding environment and what's happening and so on. So from that report, it says the average donor retention rate across the nonprofit sector is around 40 to 45%. So it means for every 10 donors you get, you only keep 4. And 6 of them leave. So individual givers, maybe if you had people who are donating to your organization and you're able to recruit 10 people, then 6 will leave at some point, maybe in the first year, second year, third year, and you only keep 4. Maybe if you have 10 donors in your organization, After project periods, 3, 4, 5 years, you end up losing maybe 6 of them and only 4 remain. So that is the current statistics as is. And part of this is because many of us treat donors the way we treat our ATMs. Yeah, we treat donors the way we treat our ATMs. You go, get what you need, the money, you will go back the next time you need money, you know, and hence the attrition rates that we have of our donors. We only see them as, you know, we only go to them when we need something. Once we receive it, we don't go back until the next time we need it again, you know. So that is one of the reasons why we have a high attrition rate of donors, because we treat them as though they are an ATM. And very important, even as we continue, is to note that fundraising is all about relationships. Now, if you don't take time to build these relationships, to strengthen these relationships and connect, if possible, to a personal level with your donors, then they're less likely to give. I mean, even just think about yourself. Who are you likely to give? You know, someone who you gave $5 and they came back and said, you know, thank you, this is what I was able to do with the $5, and here is actually a story or something, you know, that I did, you know, this is how my life has changed. You know, that person, you will be excited to give that person more. Yeah. You know, and even those of you who subscribe to the Holy Book, I think, you know, it says for those who can be trusted with little, they will receive more. You know, you will receive more. But if you can't be responsible with the little you have, even that little you have will actually be taken away from you. So it takes time, but it is important for us to take that time and build those relationships. Other people will tell you, fundraisers will tell you, donors give money to people they know. That's why sometimes you find that someone will leave organization A, go to organization B, and the donors will follow them to organization B. You know, not because they really trust organization B, but because they trust the individual who's there, because they have worked with them before, they understand their work ethic, they know they're responsible citizens, and they're able to deliver on what they say. So for you to be able to build this relationship, you must have a well thought out strategy that addresses each level of the donor cultivation cycle. So there's what we call the donor cultivation cycle, and it has around five stages. We'll see the diagram in the next slide. And you need to be able to figure out at each stage, how do you acquire, how do you qualify, how do you cultivate, how do you solicit, and how do you steward your donors? Because if you figure out that, then you'll be able to retain, if possible, 80% of your donors. And that will be your path to sustainability and your path to increasing your coverage, whether it's in terms of reach, geographically, or target-wise. So also important to note is that there is no one size fits all. There is no silver bullet, yeah, that I will tell you, do this, and we are 100% sure that if you do that, you'll be able to solve all your attrition issues with regards to donors. No. That's why I said, you know, depending on who your donor is, what your donor likes, the nature of your organization, size of your organization, capacity and resources, you need to understand all this to be able to figure out what is the best approach for us with these particular donors. And what works with one donor may not work with another donor. So you need to figure out, so that it's not one size fits all, you know, but it's specific. Yeah, for that one who needs an XL, a triple XL, 1XL, large, medium, small, you have each specific to your target audience. So we must learn the best ways that are there, or that we can, to cultivate and retain new donors. Yeah. So we must figure out how do we cultivate and retain new donors? How do we establish relationships based on their interest and passion for their mission? Yeah. So what is donor retention? Basically, this is the measure of how many donors continue to contribute to your organization after making the first donation. So whether they're individual givers, whether they are corporates, whether they're institutional donors, you know, can USAID, once they fund you the first time, can they fund you the second time, the third time, the fourth time? If it is FCDO, if it is CEDA, you know, if it is Qatar, you know, can they fund you the second, third, fourth time? If you went to recruit individual givers and someone has said, I will be giving, you know, can they give you for the first year, the second year, and the third year, or will they get tired after one quarter and so on? So donor retention is basically how many of these donors continue to contribute or fund your organization after making their first donation or first funding. So when we say high donor retention rate, what we basically mean is that you tend to keep your donors year after year, be they corporates, be they individual givers, be they institutional donors, that you tend to keep them. That you can look back at the last 10 years and say, hey, we've been with this donor, unless there's a shift in strategy or a change of vision or something policy that now maybe makes your interests not aligned. But if it is in terms of work, delivery, then you're able to keep these donors. When you talk about low retention rate, what this actually means that you as an organization, you'll have to work extra hard to acquire new donors to keep the doors open. So if you're working in a community and you keep on losing your donors, it means you need to work extra hard to get new donors. And it is more expensive to get new donors than to retain the ones that you already have, because you already have a platform, you already have an open door, you've gone in. So basically is to make sure that you keep your seat there, you know. So it's easier than trying to find a new donor, you know. So when you have low detention, not detention rather, but low retention, donor retention rates, then what it means is that you must keep on working hard to acquire new donors. When your project is about to come to an end or the year is about to come to an end, you have to figure out, how do we get a new donor? How do we get new donors so that our work, our projects do not come to a halt? So this is what I was referring to, what we call the donor cultivation cycle, and you can search it and read more about it. It basically has these five stages, where we have the first stage, which is to identify. Yeah, it is to identify. So you want to begin by identifying the high potential donor prospects. Yeah, the high potential donor prospects. It's just the way if you are farming, you want to select the best seed that you can plant. Yeah, you want to understand the trends and commonalities among prospective donors. You want to understand their targets, their resources. You want to understand their demographics, you know. And that is why even when you go through a call for proposal, when those of you who have attended our proposal writing workshops, you know, and one of the first things we usually do and discuss is, how do we analyze a call for proposal? So for institutional fundraisers, we have to analyze and find out, what is this donor interested in? Where do they want to fund? What do they want to fund? How do they want to fund? You know, so that's identification. If it's individual givers, you want to understand, in your city, in Juba, in Nairobi, in Joburg, in your town, in your country, who are the high potential donor prospects? If you're targeting the middle class, if you're targeting companies, if you're targeting, who are these? So you begin to identify, you know, the potential donors. Then the next stage is to qualify. This is where now you determine if there is a strategic fit between your organization and this donor. Do your interests align? Can they be able to contribute? So using the analogy of the farm again, the first step, you identified the seed. Is this the right seed? The second step, you want to find out the soil's suitability for growth, because you might have the right seed, but if the soil is not suitable, then you may plant the seed and it won't grow. And therefore you'll have an attrition rate. You need to again go look for a new donor, So you want to find out the suitability. Is there a strategic fit? Are our interests aligned? Then the third stage is cultivate. Yeah. So this is where now you move the prospect towards solicitation. So remember, you have not yet asked them for funding. You've only identified these are our potential donors. These are our potential markets for fundraising. Then you have qualified and said, now there is a fit, there is an alignment. This donor is interested in SRH. This donor is interested in agriculture and livelihoods. This donor is interested in WASH. This donor is interested in education programs. You're finding the suitability, the soil suitability. Yeah. So stage 3 is cultivate. This is now where you now got the seed. The soil is fertile. You've planted the seed. You begin nurturing that seed. And how do you do that? Communication. You begin informing the donors about your mission, about your vision. That's why branding and communication is an important part of your organization. If you don't have that department, at least find someone you can assign that role of branding and communication, because donors need to know who you are. They need to know your mission. They need to know your vision. They need to know about you, so that they can feel comfortable to relate with you. So you are beginning to cultivate a relationship. Then number 4 is solicitation. So when the time is right, you move to the transition stage where you make a compelling case for support. Yeah. So this is where for institutional donors, you will be submitting your calls for proposals, or if the donor accepts unsolicited proposals, you will now be able to approach. So it will be a blind proposal, but when it arrives at the desk of the development cooperation officer, they already know about you. They have heard about you. They know what you do. Maybe you invited them in your events, So even in our, allow me to use this example, in our personal relationships, it's the same thing. You spot, you figure out, strategize, you begin cultivating, friendship. You begin checking, are our interests aligned? Are our visions aligned? Then it gets to that point that you propose, will you be willing? Are you willing to be, that solicitation, where now you ask for a gift of a specific amount to a specific initiative. For institutional fundraisers, that would be the calls for proposals and so on, or submission of unsolicited for proposals, or if it's individual giving, or if it's corporate, then now it's the right time. Yeah. And then once they give you the funds, then you now move into stewardship. Yeah, where you are using those resources to do the things that you committed to do, and you are updating the donors, you are thanking them, you are recognizing them, and you are also reporting to them your use. So this arrow for stewardship goes back to identification, but in my view, that arrow should go back to cultivation or qualification. Yeah, because you've already identified them. So, but if you're identifying new donors, then you go back there. But these ones that are already there, you continue building that relationship and strengthening that particular relationship. So join our workshop so that now we can go into details of this, but this was just to remind those of us who might have forgotten, and just to lay a foundation of some of these things. So what are some of the key strategies? I see time is running quite fast. Let's see. So one of the things that I would propose to us, ladies and gentlemen, is for us to be able to retain our donors, let's form a habit of monitoring fundraising. Yeah. So the question I would like to pose to all of us, for your fundraising departments or for your organization, do you have what we call retention metrics. Yeah. For example, do you check on your donor retention rate? If you look at the last 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, have you ever collected the data and asked yourself, how many donors have we been able to bring on board? How many have we been able to retain? How many have we lost? What is the average lifespan of the donors that we kept? When you look at each donor, did you keep them for 3 years, 1 year, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? What's the average? What is the lifetime? If it is individual giving, what is the frequency? Do they prefer giving on monthly, giving quarterly, giving 1 year, and so on? In terms of acquisition, in the last 4 years, how many donors have you been able to bring on board in the last quarter, in the last 1 year? So these are some examples of metrics, retention metrics, that might help you to monitor fundraising habits. And if you do this, they will be able to provide a better understanding of how donor cultivation is working and what efforts you need to put in place, or what efforts you have put in place that lead to great success. Because if you identify that there is this group of donors that we have kept that have worked with us for the last 7 years, it's important for you to ask yourself, what is it that we did or we have been doing that has made them stick with us for the last 7 years? The ones who left after 3 months, what could have happened? So it helps you to re-strategize, refocus, understand the trends, the patterns, so that you may be able to have a very targeted approach. Yeah. Then we also have just a moment. Just a tip. If your new donor retention has decreased recently, a breakdown of how each donor was introduced to the organization may help identify critical areas of communication that must be addressed. So this is just a tip. If when you look back and recently you see that there's been a drop in the donors that you have, then you could also check how were they brought in. Sometimes the problem is the onboarding, the orientation, how did it happen, and what was the process like that led to them dropping off. So it's important to do that. It helps you understand. Then we have segmentation. Now, before developing a relationship with new donors, you must understand why they were initially interested in your organization and how they've reacted to additional communication. So some of the things that you need to ask yourself is, when did they first donate? When did we get this donor on board for the first time? What is the history that we have? Did they give more than once? We responded to calls for proposals. We won the first one. They have released another 5, and we bidded for those. Did we win or not? Did they respond to a specific program or activity? Sometimes, like for those of you who target funding from an organization or a foundation like the Postcode Lottery in Sweden, for example, they always have a thematic area that they focus on for that particular year. So it's possible that you won the grant last year because they were focusing on SRH, and you're also focusing on SRH. And this year, maybe you didn't win the fund because their focus was on people with disability, and you are not in that sector, or you are not strong in that particular field. So you need to look at what was the motivation and interest, the demographics, the age, gender. This is especially for individual givers. You want something that I noticed, especially in Europe, if you read the fundraising reports for individual giving and individual sponsors, that now there is a lot of campaign to get young people to give, because they noticed most of the regular sponsors and major donors actually are retirees, are people who have already retired. And with time, because of the cycle of life, they will no longer be there. But a majority of young people are not regularly giving. So sometimes you want to understand if you're focusing on individual donors, what is their profile? You know, this is profiling. What is their profile? Are they more of young people? Are they more of the middle class? Are they more of who are these who have been giving regularly? And who are these that we can still target, but we haven't done a good job in targeting them, you know? Their occupation, their location, it will help you to be more targeted. And then of course, there's also communication preferences. There are people who prefer emails, other phone calls, other face-to-face meetings, other social media. So you don't assume everyone wants to read your magazine, yeah? And then you send a magazine of 50 pages to everyone. You send it on email, send it on WhatsApp, send it on whatever, you know. Please understand what your target audience prefers. Sometimes people flood our emails with all manner of things, and then at some point there's fatigue. You see, this is from Humanitarian Global. You don't even bother to open, you know. So don't overdo it. Be targeted. Understand your audience. So segmentation is really, really, really important. Yeah. Moving on swiftly. So we've talked about monitoring fundraising habits. We've talked about segmentation. Number 3, I would like to propose that we, related to the last thing I've said, to have a clear and direct communication. Donors must feel connected with the organization. It's important for USAID, and that is why you will see in their branding, they will tell you, make sure in your branding you've written from the American people, you know, because they want to feel connected. They want to be recognized, you know. You go to FCDO and they will say right there, this is with contribution from, you know, and so that they are also safe, they will tell you, please write, if it's a publication or something, please write that this was done with funds from. However, the views in this particular document do not belong to the donor, but are rather the client or the recipient or the organization or the individual who's done that publication. So clear and direct communication is important. Regular email updates, for example, can inform donors about your activities and specifically how their contribution is helping. I have found it also very important sometimes all of us in this meeting, the 88, 90 plus of us in this meeting today, chances are one of the funders of your programs, they have an embassy in your country. Have you ever made a point of inviting their relevant officers to just come and visit your project? Because you never know. These are some of the ways to cultivate donors and to court donors, if I may use that word. So sometimes you send an email, but because they receive so many, they may not read. Have you ever invited them to do a project visit with you, you know, just to see what you're doing? I mean, have you ever asked for a meeting to go and share with them what you do and find areas of convergence and so on? So clear and direct communication is quite key and quite important. So a pro tip, getting to know your donors on a more personal level is possible, if possible, and ensuring that you communicate clearly and directly can go a very long way towards improving your retention rates. Now, related to communication is storytelling, or human interest stories, or human impact stories, or most significant change stories, whatever you'll call them. Tell impactful stories. Facts and figures are essential when conveying a donor's impact. It's important for them to know, this is how much we raised, these are how many people we were able to reach, these are the trainings we did, this is the food that was delivered, these are the machines that we gave, these are the seeds, that all those things are important. However, stories that share personal accounts have a greater response rate. I mean, look at the reaction when this current war that is happening between Israel and Palestine. Have you ever seen any of, and please allow me to say this not in a bad way, the war that is happening in Israel, between Israel and Palestinians and Ukraine and Russia, have you ever seen any document they will send out there that is saying X number of men are going hungry, or X number of men, have died. Mostly it will be children are going without food. Pregnant mothers are starving. The sick in hospital have been bombarded and so on. Because stories that share personal accounts have a greater response rate. People, you want to draw the emotion of the donor, not an emotional blackmail, but you want to bring them into your situation to see the impact and the effect of them either giving or not giving has on your intervention. So donors are certainly more inclined to give when they feel a true connection. Personal stories from project participants and stakeholders are among the best ways to facilitate this connection. So if you can do a documentary, a small video that you send, nowadays, and you'll see the 1 minute videos, the 2 minute videos, that they can see the impact, and then you acknowledge them, you recognize them. They will look for you, my friends. They will look for you and say, what other need do you have? We have something left this year. What else can we support you with? That may not happen most of the time with the institutional donors who are very structured in the way they do, because when they have the call for proposals, that's quite structured. But these are the ones that may not follow that. Really, really, really important, to be able to share these stories. Then we have donor, sorry, I'm moving a little bit fast because of time, donor recognition and compliance. Now, this especially for institutional donors, the multilateral and bilateral organizations, compliance to the contractual obligations is very, very, very important. Are you reporting when they said you should report? If you are making any changes in your project, are you following the procedure? Most of them are very clear on what direct costs are, indirect costs are. And again, if you attend our resource mobilization or fundraising workshops, we really handle those issues. What are direct costs according to this donor? What are indirect costs? What are the eligible costs? What are the ineligible costs? What do they allow? What don't they allow? It's very important. And once you demonstrate compliance, you give them an easy time when audits are carried out and field visits are carried out, and they're likely to even fund you more. So staying compliant reassures the current and prospective donors that your course is legitimate. That is why sometimes, on most of the time actually, even when you're applying for proposals, they will tell you, please attach your audit reports and narrative annual reports for the last 3 years, because they want to see, are you compliant not only to your country laws, but to the other issues regarding funding, how you use your funds, how you operate your manage your finances, and so on. So be very conversant. A pro tip: be very conversant with the contractual obligation and annexes. Now, for those of you who have received funding from the EU, they have almost 10 plus annexes that they usually have, whether it's about code of conduct, eligible, ineligible costs, issues to do with fraud and corruption, blah, blah. Those annexes are very important. Sometimes we lose it because we don't bother reading the annexes. We just sign the contract and we begin implementing. Then at some point, it becomes an issue. Number two, attend sessions, webinars, trainings on compliance. And I want to request HG at some point to begin even introducing some of this, where we can be discussing USAID requirements, for their projects, FCDO, the different donors, and what is required and so on. But also be on the lookout. Normally, most of them will have these sessions and webinars. I know, like, for example, USAID, I think, is it next week or next month, they will be having a session. If you go to their website, you'll be able to find webinars and sessions where they talk about what is required for effective execution or implementation of projects that they have funded. Now, those are just some of the key strategies in my view that are really, really important. Just to go back through them very fast. Number one, monitor fundraising habits. Number two, segmentation. Yeah, understand why your donors are interested and how they reacted to additional communication. So segment, know what to share with who and how to do it. Number three, clear and direct communication. How do I reach out? What is the best media to reach out to this particular donor? And how do I know that they have received my information and acted on it? Then number four, tell impactful stories, and I would also generally talk about reporting there. How do you report? Don't just report figures and numbers. Also report the human interest stories, impactful stories, and you can add 1-2 minute videos there. Then number five, donor recognition and compliance. Recognize your donors. It is okay, and of course you can always. I know there are donors who do not want to be mentioned, but there are others who want to be recognized, and then make sure that you are compliant to the contractual obligations. If they say report on the third day of the quarter, please do so. If they say send your reports by 15th of January of the new year, please make sure you do so. Follow those things. So final tidbit, whichever you'd like to call it. Operating a successful nonprofit organization requires the willingness to learn and quickly adapt. Yeah. And this also, when you come to our project management sessions, we talk about adaptive management, agile project management. How do you adapt to the VUCA environment very fast and still achieve your goals? So sometimes you must take a hard look at what hasn't been working to make the right changes for a higher retention rate. So it's not just about doing the right things, but are you doing them right? Doing the right things the right way, so that you're able to achieve results. So non-profit organizations that fail to retain donors are the ones who stay stagnant in their ways, refusing to consider other avenues and workflows. You don't want to change, and you have examples. People give the examples of Kodak, Nokia, companies that quote unquote refused to change and were carried away. So if you also refuse to change and understand what's going on, the things that are being discussed currently in the donor world, you need to be aware. Let me just mention them. You can write them down and go and search if you're not aware. Issues to do with the localization are very important. And related to that is what is referred to as the Grand Bargain Agreement, very important. Issues to do with resilience now are very important. Issues to do with human rights-based approach in your programming is very important. Gender transformative approaches is very important. Inclusivity is very, very important. If you are having a project about young people, how are they included? People with disabilities, how are they included in your planning, implementing and monitoring of your intervention? Those are some of the things that if they miss in your communication, in your documents, in your proposals, in how you're working, then you may not interest donors to work with you. So it's really, really important, GESI, gender equity, and social inclusion, very, very key and very important, some of these things, So yeah, back to you, Sheilah. I think we have around 5 or 7 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kadiri. We have definitely learned a lot, and I want us to start by doing the right thing in the right way by any questions. So I had mentioned that we can use the Q&A section to ask any questions that we have. So I'm only seeing one question, and before I read it, if you have a question, I will give a few participants to ask questions live so that we can be able to answer them. And as you wait for them to raise up their hand, I think Sharif was asking, what are the main strangles we use in donors? I'm not sure. Maybe he's talking about the main strategies in getting donors. I think we've been able to highlight a few things in that. Maybe you can give up a few words before.
Yeah, Sharif,
Mm-hmm.
there is donor acquisition and there is donor retention. So acquisition is where you are getting new donors, and retention is your keeping the ones that you already have. So I will refer you back to the donor cultivation cycle. It covers actually both how you acquire and how you retain, from identifying, qualifying, soliciting, and then stewardship. It helps you to do that. So each of those stages has things that you can do that will enable you to acquire new donors. But first, I would say presence. How is your branding and communication? Do donors know you? Are you there? If they go online, will they find you? If they can't find you, they may have doubts whether you are a briefcase organization or not. Yeah, in short.
Okay. Thank you for that. We'll also want to give Asefa Getie a chance to speak. I'm seeing your hand is up. Asefa, you can unmute and maybe ask your question or your comment. As Asefa prepares, I think I'll ask the question, what are the tools for donor cultivation? What are the tools for? Yes.
That is from Mola. Thank you,
yes.
Mola, for that question. Again, what I would say, and what I normally use is what I usually refer to as the donor mapping tool. So basically, you can call it whichever name, but first you identify who are the donors in your area. Then you want to identify what are their interests, where are they working, who are they funding, what's their funding budget, what's their funding cycle. So you fill in the entire information. Then from there, the purpose of doing this is for you to identify strategic fit. Then you select like the top 10. Now from this top 10 from your donor mapping tool, you develop a communication and engagement strategy. So for CEDA, how will we communicate and engage with CEDA? How will we do that with FCDO? So that's why I talked about identify what's the best form of communication to them. Is it a face-to-face meeting? Is it an email? Is it, inviting them for a project site visit? You do that. Then once you understand their funding cycle, then you'll know, are these people who I need to give an unsolicited proposal, or do they have a funding cycle where they release calls for proposals or requests for proposals that I need to respond to? So have a donor mapping tool, have a communication and strategy tool, and then a feedback. And again, if you come to a resource mobilization class, we're able to share these tools in depth and even do some practical examples to see how we can work with them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to give a chance to Charles Opara. Charles Opara, can you hear me? You can unmute and speak.
Nigeria. I'm Charles Opara. Work with Alliances for Africa as the MIE officer. I want you to clarify something for me. For instance, you have a donor who has given you funds and you're implementing. Now, apart from engaging in reporting to this donor and every other thing that has to do with communicating without funded project, is there another area you can engage with that donor to make sure partnership continues? Don't know whether you understand me.
Yeah. I want to believe I've understood that beyond sending reports and probably what's already in the contract, what else might you be able to do to continue engaging this particular donor? Yeah,
Yes.
I think part of it also, there could be inviting them for visits. And then there could also, you could look out for technical working groups or communities of practice, forums that you're able to like exchange knowledge and information. So it's not really related to this specific project, but you're inviting them. You see like webinars like this and telling them, hey, we see that your organization, you're really good in livelihoods. Could you come and share in a webinar or something? So you could also look for such opportunities where you can invite experts from them to come and share with your team or a community of practice that you've put together. You could form those communities of practice, where you meet maybe once every quarter and just be able to discuss what are the trends, what are the patterns, share information, share knowledge. In one of my previous appointments, we used to have what we were calling science cafes. So science cafes would meet over coffee and discuss relevant topics, and people would come and share data, share information, and that excites people, and they see, okay, they get to know you more, they get to know what you do beyond this specific project that they have funded you in, as a few examples.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I believe, Charles, you have been answered. I want us to go very fast because time is not on our side. Elizabeth is asking, sometimes donors or project partners go beyond funding and start influencing internal decisions and micromanaging experience. What can an organization do in such a scenario? And maybe you can answer that with, is it okay to retain a donor for more than 10 years?
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. That is very true. That is very true. Now, I will tell you, and this will be hard. Sometimes they do that because they think of, imagine we are desperate for that funding. And again, the other truth is that whoever calls the piper or determines whoever pays the piper, determines the tune or the dance, So most of these donors, because they imagine you're surviving because of their funds, then they will want to do that. Now, what you can do, that is why it is very important for you as an organization to have policies, because that is what you can fall back on. They tell you, we need you to incorporate an output on LGBTIQ, but then you can be able to tell them, okay, while we agree and accept, but our policy does not allow us to engage in this, So having policies is really important, because you can use that, and say, as an organization, this is what we stand for. Because the truth is, without you also, they can't do anything, because they have the money, but they don't have the community. You have the community, but you don't have the money. So it's a partnership. That's why nowadays we push for partnerships, that let's see each other as partners. So sometimes also that micromanaging comes about if we have not been, you remember the last point on donor compliance. If we have not been compliant, then they are likely to be more involved. Now, lastly, sometimes also it's an issue of understanding the way of working. They may not mean bad, but it's just their perception. So you need to show them that we are capable, that we can, and try to have a conversation with them. Sometimes we are afraid, but if you sit them down, you can actually have a conversation and tell them, hey, could you tell us what would you like us to do? This is how we prefer working, and so on and so forth. Now, is it okay to retain a donor for more than 10 years? If you can retain even for 50 years, the better. Why not? If they are funding your organization, keep them. That's why we are talking about donor retention strategies. Keep them as long as you can, so long as your interests are aligned and they are not doing what Elizabeth has said. They are not trying to make you small, a replica of them, but they are aligning to your vision and purpose. Thank you, Sheilah.
Thank you for that. I think I'll give one attendee to ask a question. Now, Uyo Augustine. Now, you, Augustine, are you able to ask your question? You can unmute. You, Augustine, I don't know if you can hear me. And as he prepares, I have these two questions that are a bit related. What is the exact donor report you require for criteria selection? And how can I report donors? Is there a criteria to explain it a little bit?
Just read it again, Sheilah.
What is the exact donor report that you require for criteria selection? And I think that one is related to how do you report donors? Is there a criteria to be able to explain the same?
Or if I understand, if it's talking about how to report to donors, most of the time, once you have a contract with the donor, they will be able to have the templates. So some of them will give you their own templates, and this could be quarterly reports or semi-annual reports or annual reports and end of project reports. So it could be 2 or more of those. And they will give you the templates. Others will also tell you, you are allowed to use your own organizational template so long as you capture the relevant information that is required, the changes that have happened, the results that you're seeing, the challenges you're experiencing, how you've managed the finances, and so on and so forth. So most of the donors will give you. Now, you could have those small, like maybe if you're mentioning selection criteria and you have a small report on how you did that, those ones you can always have them as annexes, so that if they intend to read more about a specific activity, because internally you'll also have activity reports. So if the donor wants to read more or anyone else wants to read more, then you can have links that will take them to those specific reports if they want to read. So in short, most of the donors will provide you with a template that you can use.
I want us to stop there. Thank you so much for attending the session. Thank you so much for all the many questions. Now, I would seek your permission that we can answer these questions on our Discord platform. So please make a point to join Discord, and then you'll be able to be answered all of these questions, as well as many more questions that would be important or are important even as you go through this aspect of donor mapping, donor retention, essence of fundraising, and resource mobilization. I want to appreciate that Kevin Kadiri is also answering some of your questions even as we continue. But then if you have a question, please stay on board so that you get your answer from it, and then we'll be able to proceed. A reminder, we will be sharing the notes and the presentation as well as the recording on your email. So make a point to recap on what you missed even as we progress. And if you have any questions, comments, clarifications, even after this webinar, please reach out to us. I believe our emails and our contact details have been shared on chat, and we'll be able to guide you. With that, allow me to wish you all the best. Thank you once again, attendees. Thank you, Bwana Kadiri, for just enlightening us and providing us what we have learned today. And also, most of all, thank you, HG team, for providing us with this avenue to be able to learn a lot. With that, allow me to end there, and let's all have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Attention humanitarian and development professionals. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Then you've come to the right place. Humanitarian Global offers self-paced online courses designed specifically for you. With our comprehensive curriculum, you'll build your capacity in the most critical areas of humanitarian and development work. Our course offerings include monitoring, evaluation, accountability and learning, water, sanitation and hygiene, disaster risk reduction and management, food security and nutrition in emergencies, procurement and supply chain management, human nutrition and dietetics, maternal, infant and young child nutrition. With Humanitarian Global, you'll have the opportunity to grow your skills and impact the lives of people in need. Visit our website to learn more about our courses and apply today.
Miss Emilia Siafa
Shoaib from Somalia.
Joyce Walunya, Grace Mota. I'm really happy to be here at Humanitarian Global attending the training.
I learned of Humanitarian Global through a friend. I got a chance and I've learned a lot.
So I'm glad that I took the course. It has been helpful, it has been enriching, and I'm glad that I did.
Of course, I've gained a lot of knowledge about the wash sector, particularly in each sector, whether it's water, sanitation, and hygiene.
I have more information now. I have more ideas. I know new skills and techniques that I can incorporate.
This training has been very instrumental, and I would encourage each and everyone to come and train with the humanitarian organization for this specific training.
I look forward to, being a participant of other future programs with this institution.